Generally, this is the way it works. Not all the time, but generally. Baseball, football, basketball, soccer, doesn't matter the sport. It doesn't even matter the level, high school, college, pro. Championship teams have a majority of their best players in their prime, like Boston. So this is going to be the inevitable conclusion of this series. Not over yet, it will be. Tatum's in his prime, just got into it. Jaylen Brown in his prime, just moved into it. Marcus Smart, I think, a limited offensive player, has been in his prime for about 2 years, but he's in the middle of it. Robert Williams, a limited offensive player, but defensively, he's in his prime. Meanwhile, P.J. Tucker's 37, Kyle Lowry's washed at 36, and Jimmy Butler's knees are 45 years old. Okay, so they just don't have, they need a knockout, and they don't have a punch. In 2 games in this series that Tyler Hero didn't play, a bench player, hell of a bench player, but a bench player, Miami scored 80 and 82. When a bench player missing chokes out your offense, you're not a championship team. I didn't buy Miami all year. I have the NBA package too. I watch a lot of halves, quarters, and games. I didn't get Miami. They don't have a dominant number one scorer. Not only do the Celtics have the best number one scorer, Tatum, they have the best number 2 scorer next to their number 1 scorer, Jaylen Brown, who's also a really good defensive player. And culture and passion, I'm a huge fan of that. I've been talking about that stuff before people talked about that stuff on radio and TV. I'm culture passion guy. Belichick, Popovich, even those guys would admit you need dudes. You need dudes, and Miami needs another dude. You can't lose a bench player and be like, yeah, without him we can't score. I like Bam Adebayo. He's a defensive player. Stop trying to sell me that he's Giannis or Embiid. Those guys can drop 35 any night. Bam scored a lot of points in one game in this series when Robert Williams for the Celtics was out. And so, for the record, Boston also has a very good culture. It's not like we have good culture against bad culture. We have 2 really good cultures. The difference is one team has a lot of flexibility. Jayson Tatum can shoot, create, defend. Jaylen Brown is twitchy and athletic and can create, and he can defend. And Marcus Smart's the defensive player of the year. They have multiple players who can guard multiple guys in multiple ways and trap, and they can just do so many different things. Their versatility is so much great. I mean, Tyler Hero's going to shoot. That's kind of what he does. And Duncan Robinson can shoot. And Bam Adebayo can defend. But once you put a good defender on Bam, that offense dries up. This reminds me, I was thinking about this, watching them, that Pat Riley's the architect in Miami, just like he was the architect in Los Angeles. And Pat's brilliant, and he's built a lot of different teams a lot of different ways. We saw him put together the Heatles. And that's probably easier than building other teams because they're just so darn talented. But this Miami team is so much like one of his mid to early 90s Knicks teams that he built, which is they play hard, they're tough, they're passionate, and basically have one scorer. That was Ewing. This is Butler. They got one really A-list scorer. Well, Jimmy's knees, I mean, Jimmy's played hard for a long time, and he's great, but this inflammation of the knee thing, this has been happening throughout the playoffs last couple of years. And here's the other thing. Frankly, let's be fair to the Miami Heat here. Folks, they lost LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Bosh in a couple years. It's kind of hard to replenish from that. I mean, the Lakers have been trying to replicate versions of Shaq and Kobe and Phil forever. It's hard. I mean, how long after Michael and Pippen left and Phil left Chicago? That'll probably never happen again. That's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. LeBron in his prime, D-Wade end of his prime, Bosh in his prime, and all these guys running in to jump and be part of the Heatles, they'll probably never have that team again. And then when they all leave, they're trying to replicate it. It's impossible. And I think another reason it was really important for Boston to win, it's so much easier when you're a parent if you tell your kids this is the way the world works, and then they can see it happen. And they're like, oh, mom and dad are smart. It's much harder to tell your kids this is how you should act, and people that don't act like that succeed, right? And so Boston has been selling patience. We're not going to give up assets for Paul George. Patience. And I was one of those people, I'm like, yeah, okay, show me the money. You got to give me, I'll buy patience. I'll put money away for the 401k, but it's got to grow a little. Got to grow a little. You got to show me the money. This was a show me the money moment last night. It's like, okay, now we're going to get to the finals with this team. And I do think they match up with Golden State and Dallas well. But at some point, and patience is a virtue. I'm not a real patient person. I'd be the first to say, one of my many weaknesses. But you can sell me on patience, but at some point you got to say, well, this is what we get for it. Well, last night, it's like the winner writes the book. It's like, see the patience. Paul George, he's not in the finals. All those guys you wanted us to go get, they're not in the finals. We're going to be in the finals if we win one more game. And Jaylen Brown, you just got to take a deep breath now. Boston has a tendency, we saw that, they've had some bad quarters. They got blown out at home. Take a deep breath. Okay, here's another story. You ever see a story and you think it's bad news, but it's actually good news? So this story came out, I think it was yesterday on the show, Joy. A reporter for the New York Daily News fine paper, Kristen Winfield, said KD and the Brooklyn Nets have not talked since the end of the season. Woo! Oh, that is bad news. He is out of there. I think the opposite. I think it's great news for Brooklyn. What the organization in Brooklyn is doing, and they got some really smart people there. This is really shrewd. They're protecting Kevin Durant. Because now, when they come out and make moves with Kyrie, Kevin can say, bro, they didn't talk to me. What are you talking about? Kevin Durant now has total deniability in this situation. Sean Marks came out. KD's can be like, Kyrie. Yeah. I don't know. These guys are doing what they're doing, man. I haven't even talked to these guys. Sometimes a Hollywood studio, after a bomb, if they've got a long deal with an actor, they got to protect the actor, and the studio will take the hit on it. Yeah, that was our fault. We love our actor. That was a bad script. Sometimes you got to take one for the star, to protect the star. This is Brooklyn taking one to protect KD, because KD's the best player. KD's committed. KD plays his butt off. KD's a great teammate. KD's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's been let down. So you got to protect KD here. And the way to protect him is make sure everybody thinks we haven't talked. So when you do have to, as a story came out yesterday, Nets unwilling to give Kyrie Irving long-term contract, I can assure you KD deep down is aware of what they're doing, but he's got deniability. My opinion, KD knew that was coming. Probably a few hours or days before it was coming. Sean Marks, hey, I'm going to come out. I'm going to lay it on the line, and KD approved, signed that check. The bottom line for Brooklyn, protect KD, insulate KD, keep AD, make KD happy. That is the mission. It should be the mission. Initially, listen, KD can be sensitive. Okay, so what? Deal with it. A lot of guys are sensitive. A lot of people are sensitive. Sometimes stars are sensitive. Stars also get criticized more than everybody else. I can live with all that sensitivity stuff. I wish he could confront Draymond Green. I wish he was still a Warrior, but he's not. That's life. But let's not make the same mistake again. Understand, you got to protect sometimes your star from bad actors around him. And so I think this news that KD hasn't talked to the Nets is actually smart and shrewd and great news and gives him deniability, because I think this franchise has to eventually move off Kyrie Irving, just like they moved off James Harden. And I don't know what's going to happen to Ben Simmons, but in a couple years they may have to move off him. The only guy I'm completely all in on, absolutely, beginning, middle, end, is KD, and now he's got deniability. Sometimes you don't want everybody to know that you know everything. Sometimes saying, I don't know, or no, is a really good place to be. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.